Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Above Africa Stories from the Wild. It has been a while since I've recorded a podcast. We've been quite busy, we've been traveling quite a lot, we've seen some amazing places over the last few weeks. We returned from Mana Pools about 3 weeks ago, which I'm really excited about talking about today. So, this episode is going to be about Mana Pools and the experience that we had. So, stay tuned, don't go away. We're going to be talking about that in this podcast. We've also traveled a little bit. We went to the Sabi Sand last week. We went to Cheetah Plains up in the northern part of the Sabi Sand, which was amazing. We're going to do a podcast about that as well. Really incredible test, and the lodge is ridiculous. So we'll get into that in the next episode. But for today, we are going to be talking about Mana Pools and how unbelievably incredible that place is. It is just, it never gets old going back to Mana Pools, and we're going back again next year, so I'm super excited about it. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Mana Pools. So we've returned from Mana Pools about a month, just under a month ago. We traveled with a group of 7 guests, and I was there with Tanda Africa, and I co-hosted the photographic safari with a good friend of mine, Marlon de Toy. And next year I'm going to be there on my own. I've got a small group of only 4 guests. We'll get into the details of that a little bit later, but I want to talk about the experience that we had at Mana Pools. So let's talk about the travel and how to get to Mana Pools first, and we'll kind of take it step by step of how our trip was planned out, what we experienced, and I'll see if I can overlay some footage for you. But initially, what we did is we arrived at our Tambo. We met 3 of the guests, Ethan, Alan, and Daniela, there at our Tambo, and we had a flight to Harare. So that's quite an easy flight, a large aircraft flying. We did about an hour and 20 minutes to Harare, where we jumped off, and we were then met by our ground handlers at Aurora Airport, which helped us through passport control, customs, and then took us, straight through to where we needed to jump on our next flight with Safari Logistics, which was a smaller aircraft from there to Mana Pools. Now, when we arrived in Aurora, we met up with Khalil and Maya, which was amazing. So the group was almost complete. We had 2 more guests, MJ and Frank, that was meeting us at Kanga camp. They were already on safari in Wangi, so they were already in the midst and in the mix of things. So we met them at Kanga camp. But in any case, we jumped on our flight. Safari Logistics, very easy to use, professional, in Harare. We had our own little private lounge where we sat, we had drinks, there was food for us before we jumped onto our next flight. So really comfortable, easy, straightforward transition from Harare Airport into the Safari Logistics Lounge, and then onto our flight heading towards Mana Pools, which was in a caravan, which is about a 9-seater aircraft. And the flight was actually pretty good. It was about an hour and 15-minute flight to get into Mana Pools. Landed on a dirt runway, which was always exciting, especially if you're traveling to these places in Africa. You're landing on these dirt airstrips, and you never know. We actually saw some elephants coming in, and flying in to Mana Pools. You fly over Chitaki Springs, which is a very famous place in Zimbabwe, and landed at our airstrip, where we were met by our guides from African bush camps, and we had about a 45-minute drive from there to get to Kanga camp. Now, what's pretty amazing about the drive back to Kanga camp, like in a lot of the reserves when you get picked up from runways, is that you drive through the reserve, so you just never know what you are going to get. And in this specific case, we were driving and we were crossing one of the larger rivers, and in the distance we had a small group of elephants, a breeding herd of elephants, with a couple of calves and a couple of females. We're a group of about 5 or 6 of them. Now, one of the guests on the safari, Daniela, elephants are like her spirit animal. Little did she know what she was going to experience at Kanga camp itself, and then even at Zambezi Expeditions. But we saw these elephants, and our guy just said, "Look, I'm gonna move off. Let's just quickly go there. Let's just quickly go to these elephants, have a look, and then we can continue to camp." And the situation allowed us to actually get off on foot a little bit, move into position a little bit closer, and it was just an amazing start to the trip. A herd of elephants in a big riverbed. And we had an amazing view. We didn't spend too much time. We were there for about 10 minutes. We went back to the vehicles, which were not far away, like 15, 20 meters away. And off we went back on the way to camp. We arrived at Kanga camp, and as always, the staff is just incredible. African Bush Camps really does a great job, and the staff so passionate, and they really make you feel at home, really make you feel like family, like right from the start. Everybody was just so happy, and everybody was so happy to see you. Even though you've never met these people before, they took you in with open arms, and we just knew that the next couple of days were going to be amazing. We met up with MJ and Frank, which was pretty cool. The group was complete, and we were all at Kanga camp. Now, Kanga camp as a destination is very special. So the reason why we choose Kanga camp specifically in the late season, so we went kind of in the beginning of October, middle October rather, and yes, it is very warm in the Zambezi Valley in northern Zimbabwe at that time of the year. It is manageable, but it is warm. You have to stay hydrated. But the reason why we do it is when you go that late in the season, it's very dry. And when it's very dry, animals obviously need to move towards the water sources that are there all around. And the reason why we choose Kanga camp is there's a watering hole right in front of the lodge that has got water year round, or at least the last bit of water for the dry season. So animals come from miles and miles away to this watering hole. And even on arrival, when we got there, there were elephants drinking. So you can just imagine yourself arriving first time, second time, third time to Africa. It doesn't matter. Like even for us that travels through Africa often every year, when you see something like that, it is just so special. And love watching the guest reactions when you walk into a lodge or a camp and there's a herd of elephants drinking, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the trip. And everybody was just, blown away by being greeted by these amazing staff, and then greeted by this herd of elephants that has just come down for a drink in front of the lodge. The camp itself is beautifully situated. It's a very typical camp in Africa. It's unfenced, so you have to be wary. The elephants walk through camp quite often, so you really need to keep your wits about yourself. You can't walk in between the main lodge and your room, especially when it's early in the morning or late in the evening, especially not at night. You really have to be careful, but there's always staff around. We're always there, so we can escort you. So we always keep an eye out for what's going in and around camp. Now, we arrived, we had lunch, and we decided, are we going to go out and drive? Are we not going to go out and drive? That's the beauty about this specific trip, is that we had exclusive use of the camp. With all of our trips that we do, if we don't have exclusive use of the camps, we have private vehicles. So we are still on our own time, especially if you're on a photographic safari. You need to be able to go at your own pace. You don't want to leave at certain times. You want to leave at certain times. So there's that flexibility that we try to give our guests when we are on safari. So in this specific case, we had exclusive use of the camp and 2 private vehicles with Zimbabwean professional Zimbabwean guides. A couple of the guests wanted to really get out into the field, and they decided they wanted to head out. And a couple of us decided we are just going to stay in camp because there was just so much happening in camp. Now at Kanga camp, below the main deck area, there is a photographic hut. It's right underneath the deck. There's a couple of chairs. It's nothing like out of this world fancy, but it is quite special because you are quite low. You can see the animals coming in for a drink. You get really great perspectives. The elephants walk literally right in front of you. Sometimes you get elephants that's busy mud bathing and you get splashed with mud, so you have to keep your cameras away from that. But it's just such an amazing place because there's so much activity the whole day, every single day. Sometimes you don't even have to go out on drive because it's such a productive waterhole. And we didn't go out on all of our game drives. Sometimes you can just go and sit on the deck. You can go underneath into the photographic hide, get a cold beer or a cool drink or a cup of coffee, and just sit and enjoy what's coming. And what's nice about that is then you have the time to actually sit, and we can sit and talk about camera settings, what is working, what is not working, before we actually head out into the field. So it was quite a nice spot where we can just relax, take it slow because the game is coming to us. And often in previous years, we had the wild dogs come through there. This year, on the first morning, we had a female leopard. We were like arriving at the lodge, busy to getting ready for a cup of coffee, and we thought, oh, we should probably check what's at the watering hole, especially knowing that it's an open camp and there's guests that's coming to the lodge. We shone the light, and there we go, female leopard drinking. Well, she was just finished drinking, and she moved away into the thickets. The following morning, the same thing happened. We are usually there a little bit earlier before guests. I like to get there, maybe just catch up on a little bit of work, get the cameras ready, get ready before the guests arrive. And there, a pride of lions right there, drinking. Like we thought about shining the light, didn't. And then as we shone the light, there was the lions just finished drinking. We had to keep an eye on them. Obviously, we needed to know where they were going because you don't know if they're going to come towards camp. We need to notify the guests they need to stay in their rooms, or we need to go and fetch them, whatever the case might be. So we had to keep an eye on them, and eventually they moved off. But that morning turned out to be amazing because it was the last morning that we were at Kanga camp, and we got into an unbelievable lion sighting. So both vehicles went out on drive. One went one way, the other one went the other way, and eventually we managed to find them. And it was just a beautiful sight. Lion cubs lying on a log, not far from camp. Like there was actually some solar panels of the camp still around, and then so that's just shows you how close to camp they were. And we spent about 15-20 minutes, just beautiful light, beautiful sighting. Guests managed to get some amazing photographs. So we're really happy about it. And then they moved off into a bit more of an open area. We had impalas and guinea fowls alarm calling. So we decided, let's leave this pride. Let's go around. Maybe the males are around. Maybe the rest of the pride is there because it's apparently quite a big pride. We went around. We found another lioness and a couple of subadults. And then we waited for the prides to join, and that's exactly what happened. And we just had an amazing sighting. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. This was actually the last morning. But to revert back a little bit on that first morning drive that we actually had a lioness not far from camp as well. And she gave us some great perspective. As we arrived and we found her, she seemed a little bit nervous, and she moved off into the thicket. We looped around into a drainage line, and then she was kind of on a rise. So we were very low, but we had some beautiful foreground, like creating quite a nice perspective, quite a nice photograph. So, I mean, that was how we started our safari at Kanga camp that morning. And the afternoon we stayed in. We didn't go out because everything was just happening in and around camp, and it was just amazing. There's also a swimming pool at the main lodge. It was also quite an interesting and amazing experience for the guests. So that pool the elephants love that pool. It's not water it's fresh water that goes into that pool, especially in Zimbabwe at that time of the year. It's nice to cool down in the pool, although I don't think anybody actually used it. But we often had elephants coming to drink out of the pool. We were having breakfast, and then there's elephants behind us. It was just crazy. But Kanga camp, really beautiful. The rooms are spacious, beautifully set up, and very comfortable. It's tented camps, but it's not the normal tented camps that you would think about. So the rooms that you are in is really nice. I'll put a little video on here just so that you can see what the rooms kind of look like. Well, overlay a bit of a video just so that you can have a look and see what the rooms look like. So that was Kanga camp. Really amazing, awesome time, and I can't wait to go back. We're heading there in October again next year, 2026. So remember, if you are interested, send us a DM and we will get you the information about next year. There's only 3 spots left. We're doing a small group of only 4. Okay, we were then off the morning to Zambezi Expeditions. Now, this is where Mana Pools really comes into its own. We were there for 6 nights. It was about an hour drive from Kanga camp to get to ZE. And Zambezi Expeditions camp is a tented camp that is situated on the floodplains of the Zambezi River. So the camp overlooks the Zambezi River, which is pretty amazing. The amount of animals that you see on a daily basis at camp itself is unbelievable, because you've got that floodplains and the Zambezi River. So you would have like herds of elephants like right on the island in the Zambezi River, drinking, moving. We saw elephants actually crossing the Zambezi River. At night you'll have hippos coming out to graze. You'll have waterbuck and impalas and baboons daily in front of the camp, literally the whole day. And then one day, I'm just going to talk about the camp a little bit now, and then I'll move into the game drive and wildlife viewing. But the camp is so amazing. You've got 3 tents to the one side, and then the rest of the tents to the other sides. We had exclusive use of the camp again, and we had on 2 occasions we had just a herd of elephants literally walking straight through camp. We were sitting having lunch, and all of a sudden one of the guests said, "Oh, there's elephants coming," and before we knew it, we had elephants all around us while we're having lunch. And the other day we were like busy editing photos, and we were really in it. And then as we lifted our head, there were this herd of elephants that they were all around us. And there's this big ana tree next to camp with the pods that they were actually looking for, and they were picking up the pods that fell down, which is, I mean, if I'd wanted to, I could almost reach out and touch this elephant. And we just remained in the main area, which is like quite a large tent, which is the main area where we spend most of our time during the midday. That's also where the bar is, and where we have lunch and dinners, and we sit and edit. And these elephants were right there. It was crazy. It was just amazing to experience that at camp, and it just makes your day so full. Like coming from morning safari, afternoon safari, and in the middle of the day, that is what you're experiencing. It is really incredible. And that it was warm, but in the last couple of years, African bush camps actually put a pool in there, so the pool actually overlooks the floodplains, and that was our haven in between editing photos with guests and going on game drive and lunches. That is where we spent most of our time, was in that pool, because it was really warm, but it was so amazing. So the camp is incredible. The rooms at Zambezi Expeditions, or the tents at Zambezi Expeditions, it's basic, comfortable tented camps as you get a lot of places across Africa, but it's very comfortable, like large double bed for you to sleep in. There's fans in your rooms. There is bucket showers at the back, so it's quite an interesting concept where before you get back in the evenings, you tell your guide you want a lukewarm shower, a cold shower, warm shower, and then they go and fill your shower bucket for you. And then you don't even realize that it's a bucket shower, because it's got taps, and the water feels like you're just having a normal shower. And you can actually look over the top of your shower into kind of the floodplains to see if there's anything coming out. At least my room was way at the end. So that was pretty cool. But the rooms are very comfortable, exactly what you need. And what's nice about the rooms is, because it's a tent, these large tents, you open up your flaps in the evenings, and I had elephants in the evenings. You wake up from just this crunching, this elephant walking right past your tent, and then they stop to feed on the pods. And at night, as soon as your vision adjusts to the light, you actually see the silhouette, because you've got quite a clear view in front of the tent of the floodplains in the Zambezi River. So I actually saw this elephant just standing in front of my tent, just feeding, and you can just hear it. And everything is kind of accentuated at night. So everything is louder at night. Like during the day, there's a lot of noise, but when it's at night, it's super quiet, and you hear this elephant walking and feeding. It just seems so much louder than what you would hear during the day. So it was really amazing, really immersive, like audible immersive experience when you are at Zambezi Expeditions in Mana Pools. So that is the main camp area. Oh, another thing about the main camp area, they actually have just in between the main area and some of the other rooms, they've just got this area on the embankment of the floodplains in the river where they have a little boma fire and chairs around it. So every time in the mornings that fire is going, in the evenings when you get back, that fire is going, there's chairs there. In the morning they put out a beautiful spread, breakfast spread for you before you head out, so you can have something to eat, and then you just sit there and you've got the crackling of the fire, and you've got the floodplains and the Zambezi River in the distance. I mean, it's just like, it's that quintessential, when you think about like really like Africa safari, that's what I like, that's what it's always in my head, is fire going, coffee, you know, view, animals around you. It's really an immersive experience, and Zambezi Expeditions is great. So, in saying that, let's touch on the game viewing experience at Mana Pools and Zambezi Expeditions itself. Right, so when you add Zambezi Expeditions, this is where Mana Pools really comes into its own, and where you like truly experience what Mana Pools is as a safari destination. When you think about Mana Pools, the first two things I think that comes to mind is elephants standing on their hind legs. You know, there's very famous Boswell is in Mana Pools. And then you think about the landscape and the visuals that you see about these winterthorn forests, um, where the elephants move through, and they obviously eat the seed pods that fall from them. And the scenes are truly incredible. So that's like what you envision when you think about Mana Pools. Like immediately, that's what you see. The other thing that's very prevalent in Mana Pools is wild dog viewing. We were very fortunate with that. I'll chat about that a little bit. But again, we had exclusive use of two vehicles, and how we would plan it. We would talk about the plan for the day, what we're going to do. Some days we would go to a place called Long Pool, which is one of the four pools that generally, not always, generally have water into the late season. That's where Mana Pools gets its name from. And in late afternoon golden light, you have beautiful view of hippos, and you can get to an area where you can actually go and sit down and photograph these hippos safely, and it's just an incredible experience. Even just sitting there, when that light hits, it is truly incredible. Beautiful bird life, opportunity to get really great photos of birds. I got a great photo of a black-winged stilt flying over the hippos. So photographically, hippos, that was actually one of my favorite times of the trip, was photographing the hippos, because it's just you don't always get the opportunity to photograph hippos like that. So we'll have a plan before every game drive. Are we going to go into the forest? Are we going to look for backlight? Are we going to try and see if we can find one of the elephant individuals that stand on their hind legs? Are we going to go and look for the dogs? Are we going to look for lions? So we plan this ahead. We obviously talk to the guides and see what's been seen in the last couple of days. They obviously have got radio communication with other guides that traverse the area. And so for us, there were a number of things that we focused on. The one was obviously to find the elephant standing on the hind legs in the winterthorn forests with a beautiful clean backgrounds. We wanted to get hippos at golden light. We really wanted to try and see if we can get wild dogs, and we really wanted to try and see if we can get lions as well. And we were very, very fortunate that we basically ticked all of those boxes in the 6 nights that we were at Zambezi Expeditions. Now, the big thing about Mana Pools that a lot of people talk about is the ability to be on foot. Now, needs to be said that when we are on foot, there are rules that we need to follow, and we try to do this in conjunction with our professional Zimbabwean guides that we have with us. And it's important that we like we plan it with them. Like we will assess the situation first to see if we can get off the vehicle and if we can do an approach on an animal, whether or not it is safe to do it, number one, whether we can do it, if the area allows for it. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it. You don't just drive and stop and there's an animal, let's go. Like you really have to be conscious of how you do it. And we were very lucky that we had quite a number of opportunities to actually get off the vehicle on foot and approach animals in a safe way that we can actually get some amazing photos. And it's amazing when these animals start walking, you try to keep up with them. It's actually quite difficult. And having these professional Zimbabwean guides with us allows us to walk, actually do a proper walking safari where you can actually walk for 2-3 hours and see what you can find. And we did that a couple of times, which was amazing. It's really an immersive experience, but you have to be vigilant and you have to make sure that you do it in the right way. There were a number of times where we said, look, this is not going to work. We can't do this for X, Y, and Z reason. So but the experience being on foot in monopools was really amazing. We managed to spend some time on foot with 2 different elephants that stand on their hind legs. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Boswell, but that's okay because we got to see Boris, strange name for an elephant, and we got to see Fred, who gets his name from, he does a little shimmy, a little dance before he stands on his hind legs. So Fred Astaire, anybody that's familiar with dancing will know Fred Astaire is a famous dance academy, if I'm not mistaken, overseas, and he gets his name from that. He does a little shimmy on his back legs before he actually stands up. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing, yeah. And so we got to spend time with Fred and Boris a couple of times. We managed to see them stand on their hind legs. We had quite a number of different bulls stretching, which is still amazing, especially if you get them in that winter thorn forest and they are stretching and like, especially if you're quite far away. Interestingly enough, like when you're far away and you get that perspective and you've got the right lens on, like I was walking around with a 400 prime, a lot of the guests have got the same kind of focal lengths, and if you're like a good distance away, like probably about like 100 meters or so away from them, and you get that perspective and you frame it with some these beautiful winter thorn trees, for me that was my favorite photos to get. Got a beautiful photo of one stretching, beautiful clean background, and even later in the day, like the golden light that disappears doesn't mean your photography ends there, because you get this blue hue that comes through these trees. It creates a really beautiful scene. So our elephant viewing was amazing. Every single day we had either elephants stretching or elephants on their hind legs. We saw them on their hind legs, I think it was 6 times or 7 times. So we were really lucky, and 2 different individuals, and then plenty of bulls that were stretching. Then the wild dogs. Now the wild dogs were truly amazing. Again, like if you have the opportunity to go on foot and the situation is right and the area is right, like, and we were very, very fortunate that we spent time with these dogs 3 times. Each situation very unique, very different. Sometimes we were very high on an embankment looking down at them in the distance. Other times we were very low and a little bit closer. And we just had an amazing experience, and it really lends to getting really unique and great photographs. And they, like, even when they're sleeping and you get that light, that dappled golden light going through the leaves onto them into the shade, it actually creates an opportunity to get nicely underexposed photographs. So we were super fortunate with the amount of time that we did spend with the dogs. We actually saw them hunting once. Obviously, you can't really follow them in the hunting because it's chaos when dogs get up. And when they do move, often when they start moving, like, it's impossible to stay with them. But we really had some amazing experiences with these dogs, and it was one of my favorite experiences at Mana Pools as well. Then lions, we were incredibly fortunate to see lions on a number of occasions. 2 that really stand out. We had a sighting of 2 male lions, and They were kind of lying underneath the ana tree, and we were down on a like into the floodplains almost. So we had quite a nice eye level. Photographs that we got of them, incredibly relaxed and just amazing experience to see lions in mana pools. The one thing, there were two occasions that really stood out for me, was the one where the two males were lying right next to the river, and you had the vast expanse looking into Zambia across the Zambezi, and you just see these lions just sitting there on the bank, sun setting, beautiful. And on our last afternoon, it was hands down probably one of the most memorable experiences that I've had on safari. Um, we were watching the sun setting, and Zambezi Expeditions were right in the background, and we were sitting on the embankment that goes down into a portion of the floodplains and then the Zambezi River. And we were sitting and we were watching these elephants crossing the river, and then these lionesses came down, went for a drink and went to lie down. And it was kind of a surreal moment because we were watching the sun set over Zambezi Expeditions, and the lionesses were doing the same thing. You know, whether they were looking at the sunset is maybe anthropomorphizing it a little bit, but they were facing that direction away from us, and we had lions, river, Zambezi Expeditions camp, sun setting, just mind blowing. And then you had that escarpment of on the other side of the Zambezi National Park, or Lower Zambezi National Park, and you had the escarpment, and you can see the mountains in the background. It was just like, you can't make these things up. It was unbelievable, and got some amazing photos, got some amazing memories, some amazing moments. And I can't say this enough. Mana pools is just so special. Needs to be done right. Needs to be done with vigilance, but also good planning, good communication, especially with your guides. The guides are really good, and they know the reserve very well. They know the animals incredibly well. They know where to go, when to go. And when we communicate with them, we really do it in the right way, which I think is a really important message to get out there, is that communication with the guides on the ground and with us. And we really trying to do it in the right way, which is super important. And I think we did it in the right way, and we managed to get some amazing photographs. And I think the guests were incredibly happy. We had such an amazing group of people on the safari. Everybody's so like-minded, on the same page, and it was an amazing time. Some of them are already coming back on safari with us next year. And talking about next year, we are heading back to Mana Pools. We're doing it slightly differently this time. Even though we would love to go back to Zambezi Expeditions, we are pivoting the experience a little bit. Zambezi Expedition is actually closing for a little bit next year. So we are actually going to Nyamatuzi camp, which is beautiful. It's actually a bit more of a luxury camp in Mana Pools, which is awesome. So we're still doing Kanga camp and Nyamatuzi, but we're doing Nyamatuzi first and then Kanga camp, purely because of availability. So we're going to spend 6 days at Nyamatuzi camp as our base camp. Only 4 guests and myself will be there with our Zimbabwean guide, so exclusive private photo safari. And we're going to be out into those winterthorn forests. We're going to plan it out. We're going to get some amazing photographs. Hopefully next year we get Boswell. And I'm sure it's just going to be incredible. Nyamatuzi camp is beautifully located, overlooking the Zambezi River, and you're pretty close to places like Longpool and the Winterthorn Forest, so it's pretty easy to get into that main game viewing area where we can start walking and looking for animals. And then we head back to Kanga camp to finish it off for 2 nights. And I think it's going to be an amazing shift, because we're going to have this like immersive experience at Nyamatuzi camp for 6 days, and then slowing it down at Kanga camp, where everything just comes to the lodge, and we can sit and have a gin and tonic, talk about taking photos of these animals coming to drink, and it's a slightly slower pace. When we're at Nyamatuzi and we're out in the field there, it is go, and we work to get where we want to be, and we work to get the right photos. So there's quite a bit of walking happening when we're in Mana Pools, but it's just amazing. it's really one of the few places in Africa where you can actually walk in the way that we are allowed to walk out in the reserve, and that's what makes it so special. And again, if you do it right, it is one of the best experiences that you can have on safari. So if you are interested in joining me on an exclusive photo safari next year in October, I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm going to put some details in the description. Get in touch. Let me know. Send me a DM. And guys, if you enjoy listening to the podcast, please share this with your friends, with your family. If you know of anybody that's looking to go on a photo safari with me, let me know. Put them in touch. I'm super excited about next year. I think that we've got some amazing things on the cards. I can't wait to share all of it with you. And I will see you guys in the field. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you all in Mana Pools. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.